What is up, guys? Matt here coming at you. I finally got some run time with the new K5 Blazer. If you watched my initial video, I just got the thing in and I wanted to show you guys kind of size comparisons and stuff. I didn't get mine until the day it was announced, so I didn't have running, but I wanted to get something up for you guys so you could check it out. And then I got a lot of time in with it yesterday, like quite a bit of run time with it in stock form. And then I'd switched to these wheels and tires just to make it a little more fair, and ran it with my TRX4M Bronco. So we got a little bit of comparison there. I did actually snap my front drive shaft here, so that kind of put an end to my playing because I didn't take one with me, of course. But I wanted to mention one thing when you get this that you may want to do is set your endpoints on your steering. Mine was not turning full lock, so basically to do that, all you got to do is turn the wheel and then use your plus and minus on the steering trim. So here you're just trimming it, you're straightening it up. To adjust your endpoints, you're going to hold it in one direction and hit the plus or minus. So you'll see as I hit the minus, it's taking away steering, so we barely have anything. So we want to turn it and hit the plus. That will max out right there. And I actually was taking away about 2 on it because you don't want this to get the tires to full lock and then the servo will be doing a lot of extra work there. You can see I could probably back it off another notch or 2. So you want your servo to stop trying to work when your tires stop moving, basically. So we can turn it the other direction. I'll hit it minus a little bit. And that's about right. So I wasn't having any issue running it like that. So I just wanted to mention that. There's one other thing that I shot before I went to run that I wanted to show you guys. So we'll check that out real quick. And then I promise we got a lot of running video. So lots of run time with this one. Had a blast. Let's check out this other clip real quick. All right, so there are a couple things I wanted to talk about real quick before I go run this. Just because I'd seen a lot of people ask about bushings. There are bushings in the portals here. This main one coming off the axle shaft is a bearing, but there's one bearing or one bushing here. There's one here and one behind this gear. So 3 bushings per portal. I would have liked to seen them stay with bearings there, but you know, I get they're trying to keep the price down. Offer the 2-speed, new bodies. You know, they had to license this body with Chevy. So I kind of get it. And hopefully they left bearings in the transmission. Not going to tear into that right now because I'm kind of ready to go run this, but we'll check that eventually, or somebody will, I'm sure. But this is a nice, easy swap out for anybody, and especially somebody new to the hobby. You know, changing these out is much easier than diving in here and taking all your gears out and changing that. So hopefully they went with these and left these bearings. That's a very simple fix. You're going to want to pull these covers off anyways, 4 screws, and put some grease in there because they give us the metal gears now, but they need some grease. They are bone dry, so put you a little grease in there. I'm going to add some oil to the shocks just to hopefully make it look a little smoother on video, trailing along, and then I'm going to get this thing out. Another thing I wanted to note is this thing looks awesome as a pickup. This body looks great, but that looks pretty bad. So they didn't cut this out for the window. It has the glass in there basically, or plastic, but your window is there, but they didn't cut the body out for it. So I really would have liked to seen that. And you can see that on the box actually, if you're looking for it. I kind of knew it was that way already, right there. But for me, that's one more thing, that little edge they could have pushed this thing, because man, this body looks great. So that's a little bit of a bummer, but not an issue. We can cut that out if we want to. I don't know if it's even worth it to me. I plan to run this mostly with the topper. I don't know if it struggles to perform. maybe I'll run it more of a pickup style, but I just prefer the look with this on there. You know, I've got all sorts of different truck bodies. So I kind of like the Blazer look, but if you plan to do that, just know you may want to cut this out. So that's that. I'm gonna get this back together and we'll go run it. I'm gonna try running on stock wheels and everything. I would have liked to have got 2 of these. I went ahead and pre-ordered another one because it's so much easier to show mods back to back. You know, a weighted set of wheels and different tires is probably going to completely change the performance of this, but it's a little bit harder for me to show you when I got to be switching, flipping this and that. So I did pre-order another one. It's probably going to be a while before that's here, but it is what it is. So let's go run this thing. So getting this thing outside was definitely a blast. You know, I wish I'd have got this a little sooner, so my first video would have had some crawling in it, but you know, that's just how it is. I got mine very late and did what I could. You know, I got out with it the very next day and absolutely had a blast with this thing. I was really surprised with how well it did perform, being completely stock and a hard body and a big body. You know, this is the type that I call a big body truck, and you can see the bumpers want to hang. The rear especially, I didn't have as much trouble with the approach with the front bumper as I did the rear. So usually I could use my tires like here, kind of angle, get started up onto the rock, and the front bumper was okay. A lot of times I would just drag that rear. But some of these lines this thing did with stock wheels and tires, and these, you know, these wheels don't have much weight to them, was pretty dang impressive to me, because I was thinking that right away this was going to have some really heavy wheels to perform very well at all. You know, kind of like the TRX4M, that thing, I just immediately went and got some of the like heaviest brass wheels I could to put on those to help those perform. But this did pretty dang well with the stock wheels and tires. These tires did pretty good out on this rock. Now this stuff is, most tires do pretty decent on this. Some do better than others, and you'll see later when I kind of run the TRX4M trailing along behind this that the trenchers on that truck did really well. I put a different set of wheels on this with some of the new smaller LGRP Swamp Kings, and those tires do well. But on a rock like this, you really don't need that much of an aggressive pattern, and the trenchers just actually seem to do better. Although this truck did perform pretty dang good with just a set of wheels and tires, and the wheels that I put on here actually aren't even that heavy. They're not near as heavy as the brass wheels on the TRX4M, but we'll get to that later. When I'm kind of showing those, I'll explain that a little more. But some of this stuff you can see here, just kind of having to bump over some things, but it did pretty well. You can see some of these inclines, it gets pretty off camber. It's got a lot of really good travel. These shocks, I like these shocks. You know, people get these trucks and are always like, what's the best shock? And they just want to change shocks and this and that. And honestly, these are pretty good if you just put the O-rings in them and throw some oil to them. You know, I put oil in these, and the truck handles so much better. It's not all bobbly like it is out of the box. So once you put some oil in there, they're pretty good. For some reason, both of my rears leaked some. My fronts didn't leak at all, and most of them I haven't had any problem with leaking. So I may have to pull those apart, kind of redo the seals, make sure I didn't get something jacked up. But this little climb right here, pretty impressive, and this is where the high gear pays off. You know, I switched into high and was able to bump up that. A lot of times, you know, just like with the TRX4M, really to get a good slow crawl with that thing, I had to put the crawler gears in it, and then I probably wouldn't have the wheel speed to get up that. And I'll explain later why my time with both of them was a little bit limited. I really just got to enjoying this one so much that I just kept finding more lines and more lines, and was just trying to get good clips for you guys, and ended up with a lot of running. But when I started trailing them both at the same time together, I did end up breaking the front drive shaft on this truck. And really, I put it through some bad situations, some binds, and I was being a little hard on it. I really don't think it should have broke, even though what I was putting it through was a little tough. So I was a little let down that did give way, and I didn't bring an extra with me, so the time trailing those two together was a little limited. But you can see there, it does need a little more weight down low. Stock, you know, it's a hard body. It sits kind of high. If we can lower it a little bit, that would probably help as well. But some of the climbs and descents that it did was really pretty impressive. And just driving this thing around is so much fun. It looks so good. You know, I really like the Blazer style on it. I don't really want to turn mine into a pickup, so you know I could lose that top on the back there, and that would help it on some of these climbs. But to me, I like the Blazer look, and that's kind of how I want to run it, so I'm willing to sacrifice a little bit of performance to keep that look. And I absolutely had a blast driving this around. You know, there's just something about, even though it's an easier line that I would slay with some of my other built rigs, it's just fun trying to pick that perfect line with a truck that, you know, is more scale, which makes it a little less capable. But I was thrilled with how it performed, and found myself getting a little giddy, like excited sometimes at some of the lines I would pull, and just be like, wow, that was awesome. I can't believe it did that, but I just loved it. So right there, you can see a little bit of the body roll I'm getting. So I think maybe stiffen up those rear shocks, really getting the oil in those shocks that leaked out on me probably helped that. And if you look at the gap between the tires and the wheel wells there, I think we can lower this body just a little bit. I don't want to go too low and get into rubbing the tires on the body a lot when it does flex, because this thing has a lot of flex. And so I mean, maybe we could even limit a little bit of the travel, being that it is kind of more of a scale vehicle. But you can see it went up that pretty well, and I was pretty impressed for running it stock. I honestly thought, with the body being larger like it is, that it just wouldn't do well. I mean, I was really expecting to not enjoy it a ton straight out of the box. Like, I knew I would like the base of the vehicle. You know, I love the 2-speed. The FCX is good. The electronics are great, but I figured the performance would really struggle just because of this body being bigger. But it really did impress me. And, you know, you can have a lot of fun with this thing completely stock, and not even do anything to it. You know, obviously some heavier wheels and tires, a little better tires are gonna make a big difference. Adding a little bit more weight down low with some brass here and there will help it on a lot of like inclines and the descends and stuff, maybe keep it from tipping. But honestly, this thing's pretty fun out of the box. I mean, you can do a lot with it, and it kind of exceeded my expectations as a stock truck. I guess I'll say that. You know, I knew, like I said, it was going to be good as far as electronics and everything worked well, but I just didn't see it doing much. I thought I would be very limited, even just like this right here, kind of side hilling and stuff. I don't get all the way over this peak at the top here, but I think with a little more weight in the front end, I could have made this, you know. And the fact that I was able to come up here and make that turn with this big body kind of surprised me, that I was able to even get to this point. Now, see right here, just a little bit more weight in the front. I think I could have got this, but I just looped out eventually. And this is a pretty steep little incline right here, and you can see it starts to go, and I let out and just almost get up there. If I could get that front to grab, I could maybe get over that, or just kind of launch up it a little bit and some weight in the front, pull the front end down. But I looped out. I did flip this thing quite a few times. A couple times it rode pretty far, and I didn't break any mirrors. any headlights, bumpers, nothing broke. Really the only thing I had to deal with was the stickers that are the trim, the chrome trim down the side that separates the orange and the white. That was wanting to come off, and it looks kind of rough underneath there. So if you're running this in wet, nasty conditions, those are probably not going to stay on long. This is one of my favorite lines right here, and you can see these tires do really well on this side hill. As a tight squeeze, trying to not hit the mirror and make it around that. The front tires, well, both tires on this passenger side kind of dip off the edge there. The tires with these foams, they didn't just completely roll over like a lot of stock tires want to do. They held their own, and I was able to pull that line. And then going up this next little section here was it's just a lot of fun. You know, this stuff is stuff that would be pretty simple with, you know, maybe like my Demeanor and stuff. Obviously, I'd just walk over this stuff, but with a scaled looking vehicle straight out of the box, like, these are some pretty good lines. And you know, a lot of times I'd just be like, oh wow, I'd see one thing and think, okay, I can probably do that, and then it would just go through it, and I would just keep going, and I'd be like, well, maybe it can do this, and then I would get it done, you know, and I'm like, oh wow, well, let's try this. And like, I just kept finding more and more lines, and just really had a lot of fun with this thing. So this is another pretty good little descend coming down that, and you can see it handled that really well. One thing that helps this so much is you have the smooth throttle control. You know, with the AX24, that thing's very capable out of the box, but the slow crawl is terrible. So like trying to ease down stuff like this right here, it's very hard to do. And with the control of the ESC and motor and just the gearing, everything, it just all works so well. You're able to creep your way down stuff like this, which is really what you need, that control. You know, that's the reason we go brushless a lot of times, is just to have that ultimate control. And you'll see right here, this thing, I just ease off this edge and watch, it lifts way up, but I'm able to just kind of control it and keep it planted. Now I do just kind of launch down this because I didn't want to blow it. I was afraid it would loop out, but you know, getting that done with the stock truck, I was very impressed with that one. And that's one thing about these, you know, with the FCX, I never find myself thinking, oh man, if my servo was working better, you know, I could do that, or if I had just a little better torque or wheel speed, you know, I could get that done. That's not the case with this. Like, everything works well out of the box. You know, you can always get better, obviously. If you spend more money, you know, and get a super high powered servo, that sort of thing, those options are always there. But straight out of the box, this is very good, and you're not going to be disappointed and sitting there thinking like, oh, I got to get a new servo. This thing's terrible. You know, the servo in this, I never once felt like I needed a more powerful servo in this crawling. I could take an AX or an SCX24 out, and the entire time I would be thinking, I've got to get rid of this servo. I've got to get better slow crawl. I've got to do this. And that's just not the case with this truck. Like, it's really good out of the box. Yes, there can be issues with any model, any brand. You know, I broke that front drive shaft. They don't have the metal yokes in them like some have, and I feel like that's part of the reason why it broke. But I was putting it in a bad bind. I was kind of using the front end of the truck, and I'll try to explain it when it comes up, but I was pushing the front end of the truck against a flat edge of a rock, trying to get the rear end to come around on a steep slope, and I put too much pressure on it, and it just popped. So partly my fault, but you know, it was kind of a bummer that it gave. Now here I put the Injora wheels on it with the smaller LGRP Swamp King tires, and I wasn't able to get this climb done with the stock wheels and tires. It just didn't have enough weight down low to make this. I kept looping out, and once I changed to these wheels and tires, I was able to get it done. And this is where I kind of started trailing along with the TRX4M right behind it. I was driving both trucks one-handed, trying to film, so just forgive me a little bit on that. But you can see it made it up that pretty well. I feel like the tires that I was running on the 4M were slightly better. I really like these Swamp Kings, but on this rock, you don't need that super aggressive tread. Sometimes when they would be slipping, I was trying to pull up something, they would slip and be spinning. I would get a lot of bounce from the big lugs, and this large body, when you get to bouncing, it's not good. So the Proline tires, the trenchers on here seem to do a little better, and you'll see the 4M just kind of walks up this. It does have some very heavy brass wheels on it, which make a big difference, and this is running the Furitek LCG chassis. So there's some work been done to this thing, but it drove very good as well, and I had fun trailing along with both of these. I'd like to take somebody along with me, and we could just kind of switch out trucks and see how it goes. You know, obviously this has more work done to it, so it actually drove a little better, but the Blazer did very well for being all stock except for changing out the wheels and tires. And I do highly prefer the throttle control on this truck. The transmitter, just the control with this is much better than the 4M out of the box. I have the crawling gears in my 4M, and so it crawls a little better. It's still not as good as this, but it's really lacking wheel speed, whereas this thing has this awesome slow crawl. You see it again here coming down that. Again, I just wanted to do it with the 4M behind it, but the slow crawl is not quite as good with this truck as the Blazer. And then the transmitter, I do not like the big bulky Traxxas transmitters. I think it's time for them to update those. I've never really been a big fan of those, and they are very hard to one-hand drive. I'm not a real big fan of like the thumb attachment things. I could print one of those, but I don't really care for those either. So I was just kind of big pawing it and driving this one-handed. Now right here, because this body is a little bit more narrow, it was able to get through this spot where I couldn't get the K5 through there. I kept hitting that tree that's sticking out, and I just couldn't get my way worked up through there. So it did have a little advantage there, but overall I definitely preferred how the K5 was driving, and it's 100% stock, you know, as far as that goes. I haven't changed any gears or anything like that in it. And you got to think too, this thing is sitting on portals, so you're going to have some more clearance there when you get into some like nasty rough stuff, and it's not really lacking on performance as much as I thought it would, being on portals with a big body. So pretty amazing that this truck drove as well as it did, is all I'm trying to say. So you can see I was able to get it on the ledge, and I think I could have got that if I was driving with two hands and just been a little easier on trying to get it done. But it was kind of hard to get this larger body up there where I needed it to be and get through that section. So little advantage there to the 4M, but that's really just a difference in body size and, you know, dimensions of the truck, I guess. Both of these looked really good trailing along. Not trying to just dog on the 4M. It is a lot of fun. The steering, the turning radius on those axles is great, but you know, I had a lot of binding in my 4M and a brand new set of axles that I bought for just another build. out of the package were very, very stiff, and I couldn't even hardly turn them by hand. I had to go to bearings in those. So, you know, that's something that you almost have to do straight away with the 4M. And then, like I mentioned, the crawl gears, which was, you know, just $5, but it's like you're almost getting nickeled and dimed to death. And then you've got all the proprietary battery and Traxxas stuff that Traxxas does, you know, like they've been wanting to sue everybody over making parts for their trucks and stuff. And you're not going to deal with that with FMS. You know, I feel like they kind of just let things be. And that's the way it should be. You know, if people are trying to make parts for your truck, then obviously it means people like your truck and they want to run it, but maybe they want to slightly improve it. So you should just let these small companies help us out, make the parts that we want if you're not going to do it, you know. Traxxas just, I don't think they really even know what's best for their own truck, and then they want to get mad at people making their truck better, I guess. I don't know. Anyways, I don't really care about all that. I'm not into that. I just like what I like and go with it. So here's another spot. The big bodies just give me a little trouble, but I wanted to leave that roll in there because you could see this thing took hit after hit, and I didn't break anything on the body. And, you know, like I mentioned, that's kind of unusual for me with a scale vehicle. Usually I take it out, I break a mirror, I lose a headlight, I this, that, whatever, trim, bumpers break. But this little spot here, trying to make this turn and come down this was pretty tough. You see, I didn't get it first time with the Traxxas either. And then I swung out a little bit wider, was able to kind of use the side skirt there, to kind of hook this rock. You can see right there, and the slider, and just then hook the rear tire, and you can see it's pretty steep, and I was able to ease down it with this truck. Having the Furitek chassis on that really helped it, I think, right there. Everything's just a little bit lower. One good thing with the 4M is the transmission and everything is pretty low on those out of the box, so everything sits kind of low with them, and you can see it handled that section really well. Now this K5, a little different story trying to get around this. I didn't have any sliders. It'd be nice to have some sliders that match up to this body. Hint, hint, if anybody wants to design those, because you can see right there I could have used them. Able to kind of use that servo again, having a good servo out of the box, kind of twisted a little bit, brought me around. Some weight in the rear would have definitely helped here where I just looped out, but once I went back, hit it again, I knew to just kind of hit the skinny pedal there a little bit and launch out of that, and I was able to make it. So a little more weight down low, and it would have slow crawled down that, eased down it just like the 4M did. So another section that I was pretty impressed that I made it down that at all. Now it didn't handle this uphill right here as well as I thought it was going to. You can see I keep trying to go up this spot right here, but again, these wheels aren't one of the heavier options that you could put on this. I like the look of these, and so that's why I kind of just grabbed them. But I would maybe go with just a little heavier wheel, or just adding some weight to the axles, portal covers, whatever. I think will take care of that. So I hang a little farther left where it's not quite as steep, and it goes up it with no problems. So here's another little section coming downhill with a little bit of side hill at the bottom. And this truck did really well. Liked the oil in the shocks. I think it looked smooth on video, and turned out pretty well. You guys let me know what you think about this truck. I'm having a blast with it. Hopefully going to get out with it again very soon. This is where I got the bright idea of putting my front end against this rock and pushing, and pop, right there went the drive shaft. I was going to try to work my rear end around a little bit and stay kind of straight up and down, but shimmy to the left a little and go a different route here, and I snapped the drive shaft. So kind of my fault, but I was looking through the camera while videoing and driving and didn't really see the drive shaft when I was driving it, and then I noticed here like it's just binding, and I'm like, what's going on? And so I found out I broke the drive shaft and it was binding up really. See, I wanted to work my way around to this left, but didn't happen. So really that was my fault. I guess a metal drive shaft is in store, and we'll get this thing back out. So you guys let me know what you think about this one. I appreciate you hanging around watching the video. This is kind of a long one, but I got quite a bit of good running in, so let me know what you think. Peace.